In our previous lesson, we talked about different units that we use in CSS to give values. So we looked at centimeters, millimeters, inches, pixels, and I ended that lesson by saying we should try it out before the next one. So that was basically what we looked at previously. So today we're going to look at Cascade. And what is Cascade? So it's just a simple explanation here. It says at some point in your work, you find yourself in a situation where multiple CSS rules will have selectors matching the same element. In such cases, which CSS rule wins and ends up being the one that is finally applied to the element. This is controlled by a mechanism called Cascade. This is also related to inheritance elements. That's when they say inheritance, they mean elements taking some property values from their parents but not others. So what Cascade is basically saying is that usually a lot of times you have different selectors applying different styles but to the same element. So I might have a paragraph, and let's say I make the paragraph 15px, then I give that paragraph a class of text, and I give that class of text a font size of 30px. So which one is going to work? Like, which one is going to have more importance, right? That's why we have a system called Cascade. So CSS is an abbreviation for cascading style sheets, which indicates that the notion of the cascade is important. Of course, for it to be a part of the name, it shows that it's very important. But at its most basic level, it indicates that the order of CSS rules matter, but it's more complex than that, obviously. What selectors win out in the cascade depends on 3 factors. So we have importance, specificity, and source order. Right, so importance is like the most common one you have to deal with. So like that's the one we look at, and that's the one that I'm going to talk about for now. Importance is basically just saying, using a special syntax to say this style is more important than any other style given elsewhere, although we are all targeting the same element. So we are basically using it to make sure that a certain declaration wins over all the others. So this sounds a bit confusing, right? So let's look at an example. We have a HTML document here that has a heading, level 1 heading. That is, this is the main heading, right? And in the style, I've given it color of red using the element selector, right? Type selector. I made it red. So if we should look at this in the browser, we would see that it is red, right? It is red. So let's say I want to use this style, the class that I gave it to style it. All I have to do is write the class name and say color blue. Save this and go back here. See that the color has changed to blue because the class selector is more specific than the type selector, because the logic is that in your HTML document you might have lots and lots of headings, level 1 headings, H1, there might be plenty, but the ones that use that class will be way fewer than most of the others, right? So it's more specific than type selectors, right? Class and ID selectors are more specific than class selectors. But let's say I want, for this specific H1, I want the color red to be more important than the color blue so that the color red will show. There's a way to do that, and all you have to do is to come after the declaration that you want to be more important and write it exclamation mark, then important. That is all. So if I should come here and refresh, it goes back to being red. That's why I said importance is the most important one of these three major factors that you're dealing with. Most of the others are more of default behaviors, the specificity and even inheritance, right? So that's basically it. Any declaration, let's say you have two different selectors giving the same or giving different styles to the same element. In this example here, we're trying to style the same heading, or this is giving a different style, this is giving a different style, but they are all targeting the same element here, this H1. The way to decide which one wins is to either use a more specific, let's say if I want it to be blue, I don't need to add this, right? I just leave this one here because I know it is more specific than just a general class name. So this rule will win. But if I want the less specific one to win rather, I just have to add the important keyword so that it knows that okay, this is the most important one, although it is not the most specific, but it is the most important, right? So that's basically it. I hope that you understand. Let's go to next thing here is box model. Okay, so the CSS box model is the foundation of layout on the web. Each element is represented as a rectangular box with the box content, padding, border and margin built up around one another like the layers of an onion. As a browser renders the web page layout, it works out what styles are applied to the content of each box, how big the surrounding onion layers are, and where the boxes sit in relation to one another. Before understanding how CSS creates layouts, you need to understand the box model. All HTML elements can be considered as boxes. In CSS, the term box model is used when talking about design and layout. The CSS box model is essentially a box that wraps around every element. It consists of margin, border, padding, and the actual content. So let's look at this image, right? It shows us what the framework of every HTML element is. Every HTML element is represented using a rectangle, right? And that rectangle contains the content, the padding, the border, and the margin. Okay, so let's do a very, very quick example. I'm going to create a div. Div. And now put let me give it a padding of, okay, first before giving it a padding, let me just write something inside. So let me just say len. Let's save this and open it here. We see we have small text here called len, right? It's very small. So let me give it a padding now. That len now, if you check the box model, that's our content, right? So I want to give it a padding, so there will be space around the content. So after giving it a padding, there should be some increased space around this word len here. So let me give it 50 px. And if I refresh, you see there's more space now. because I have given it padding of 50px. So it adds 50px to the left, to the right, to the top, and to the bottom. Right? That is what padding does. It puts space around the content. Don't forget, padding gives space around the content. Okay. Then the next property we have to look at is border. So for the border, let me give it a border of 5px so that it will be very strong, solid, and black. Okay, space. So if we save this, go back here, we should see. Great. So you see that this is actually a rectangle. It's actually a rectangle. Then there's a border around it, just to make you understand what the padding is. If I remove the padding now and refresh, you see that all the space around it is gone. Okay, so don't forget, the padding always comes inside the border around the content. That is where your padding adds itself, right? This is the padding. Any space outside the content but within the border is called the padding. So now we've seen padding, we've seen border, right? Then let's check out margin. So margin is supposed to be outside the border. So let me give it a margin of 30px. And if I go back here, you see that's added space around the rectangle. So it's outside the border. So the margin is outside the border, the padding is inside the border. That's the difference between margin and padding, because it's very common for people to get confused by these two. Okay, let me quickly show you something. So if you check to my right here, you would see, let me see if I can increase this. Okay, you would see a rectangle here. So first of all, we have the margin, then we have the border. Okay, let me select the element. If I select it now, so this is the margin, this is the border, this is the padding, and this is the content. Okay, straight to the point, right? So as you can see, every element has its rectangle by default. Then you can now specify the margin, the border, the padding. And remember, I told you for block elements, they take up all the horizontal space. That's why you see that this, although it's just one word you wrote, it goes from the beginning here all the way to the end, right? If we were to change that behavior, we'll have to change it to display inline. Good. As I change it to inline now, you would see that. Let me quickly just remove this, comment that out. So as I change it to inline, you can see that it is now acting funny, right? Because it's not supposed to be inline, but you can see that the content now just takes up the space that is content takes up is only the space of the word within it. All the other extra space is gone. And we also have inline block. Great. So this is better, but you can still see that the content is small, so the space it takes is small. While if it was a block element, it would take up all the horizontal space, like from the left to right of the screen, to take up all the available space. Okay, I think that's it for the box model. You have your padding, border, then we have margin, right? Okay, let's go back. So the content of the box where text and images appear, padding, clears an area around the content. The padding is transparent. A border that goes around the padding and the content, that is border. The margin clears an area outside the border. The margin is also transparent. So the box model allows us to add a border around elements to define space between elements. Okay. So we're going to be looking at styling text. Of course, the whole purpose of CSS is to be able to style text in your HTML, to be able to style elements in your HTML. And text is like 70% of the type of elements that you're working with, except for maybe videos, icons, images, right? So as you have already experienced in your work with HTML and CSS, text inside an element is laid out inside the element's content box. It starts at the top left of the content area and flows towards the end of the line. Once it reaches the end, it goes down to the next line and continues. Then the next line, that's how text works basically, until all the content has been placed in the box. Text content effectively behaves like a series of inline elements, being laid out lines adjacent to one another, and not creating line breaks until the end of the line is reached, except you force a line break using the BR elements. Okay, we've talked about this. The CSS properties used to style text generally fall into two categories, which we'll look at separately. So we have font styles, properties that affect the font that is applied to the text, affecting what font is applied, how big it is, whether it is bold, italic, etc. And we also have text layout styles, properties that affect the spacing and other layout features of the text, allowing manipulation of, for example, the space between lines and letters and how the text is aligned within the box. Okay, so these are the two main categories of font styling. So the font properties, CSS font properties define the font family, font weight, font size, and the style of a text. The font family property specifies the font for an element. Font family property can hold several font names as a second choice. If the browser does not support the first one, it tries the next font. There are two main types of font family names. There's font family name of a font family like Times, Courier, Arial, Times New Roman. Those are family names. Then we have generic families. So we have generic family like serif, sans serif, cursive, fantasy, monospace. So the difference between this is that for generic families, we have different categories of fonts. We have serif, we have sans serif, we have cursive, we have fantasy, we have monospace. Those are different like groups of fonts. Now inside those groups there are specific font names as family names. We have Times New Roman, there's Courier, there's Arial. If you've used maybe Corel Draw or Microsoft Word, you know a lot of fonts, right? So but each of those family names are also part of a generic family. So I don't know, maybe Courier will be serif or Arial will be serif, then Times will be sans serif, but they are all part of a it's just like animals that belongs to different kingdoms. Yeah, so that's basically the same idea. Or colors, we have primary colors, we have secondary colors. It's the same idea. So start with the font you want and always end with a generic family to let the browser pick a similar font in the generic family if no other fonts are available. So what they're basically saying is that when we want to specify a font name, we should always start with the font you want. So let's say I want my font to be Arial, but then I will end that CSS declaration with generic family name, let's say serif, in case the browser does not support Arial, but it will pick a font from the serif group that will be similar to Arial, you get, in case all the other second options I put are not found. So let me just see if we can do this. I'm going to use this. Let's see. and I want to use Arial. Which font do I use? Just Arial. Then that fonts do I know? Poppins. This is another second option. We can see Vedana. Then finally we can see serif. In case it tries Arial, it doesn't have it. It tries Poppins, it doesn't have it. Then it tries Vedana, it doesn't have it. Then it picks any font from a serif family class. Okay, so let's go back to this and refresh. You see the font size, the font type just changed, right? So of course one of them worked. I have no idea which worked, but one of them definitely worked because the font changed. Let me do this. Okay. So I commented this out. If I refresh, this is the old font that was there. Right, but if I undo this, save it, you notice that the font has changed. Okay, so that's basically how to specify the font type that you want. Then font style, font weight, text transform, and text decoration. CSS provides 4 common properties to alter the visual weight or emphasis of text. Okay, so font style, we use font style to turn text italics on and off. Possible values as follows. You rarely use this unless you want to turn some italic styling off or on for some reason. So we have font style normal, set the text to normal fonts, turn existing italics off. Italics, set the text to use the italics version of the font if available. If not available, to simulate italics with obliques instead. While oblique sets the text to use a simulated version of an italic font created by slanting the normal version. So usually people that make fonts make italicized versions of the fonts, but just in case they don't do that, your browser has the ability to just slant a text to simulate it being in italics, and we call that oblique. So that one is just your browser just bending the text to the side a bit. While if the text or the font has an italicized version, to display that instead. So let's quickly run that. Say font style italics. Oh, I not spell it well. Italic. And that's all. So it has slanted a bit. Let me zoom this out. You can see it's slanted. So this could be the italicized version of the font. You can change it to normal and it will go back to being normal straight. Then we can change it to oblique. Then it's also slanted a bit, right? So that's it for font style. These are the 3 values it takes. Let me highlight it. We have normal, we have italics, then we have oblique for font style. Then we have font weight. So font weight sets how bold the text is. This has many values available in case you have many font variants available, such as light, normal, bold, extra bold, black, etc. But realistically, you rarely use any of them except for normal and bold. So normal, bold are values it takes. Lighter, bold are also values it takes. And it also takes numbers, right? Numerical boldness values that provide finer grained control. Let's say you use bold and it's a bit too bold, than what you used, that what you wanted rather, there's no way to reduce that because there's no less bold keyword, right? So you can use numbers instead. So let's just try this out. Let's font weight, you can say bold, and refresh, you see it's bold. Okay, then if we change this to bolder, we can see it's bolder. So let's say we want to use numbers, we can also use numbers. 100, see it's bold, but it is not very bold. You can change it to 200. It's also getting bolder. Change it to 300. Just it gives you more control as a developer to get the specific level of boldness that you want. You may not really see the increments because it's just very little. But if I change it to 900, then you would see that it is very bold, right? So usually I think 700 is bold and 900 is very bold also, but it depends on what you want. There's also lights, I believe. So let's try lighter. So it just basically made it lighter. It's no longer as bold as it was. Let's try normal. So this is supposed to be normal, right? Then I want it to be light. Why didn't that change? Okay, I think we should just leave it at 100. That's the lightest we can do. For lighter and bolder, it uses relativity compared to the parent element. So let's look at text transform. Text transform allows you to set your font to be transformed. Values include none, prevents any transformation, uppercase, transform all text, capital, lowercase, transform, just like the name implies, capitalized, has the first text capitalized. So let's do text transform, so capitalize, see, it's made the first letter capitalized. If you check the HTML, the first letter is not capitalized, but we can use CSS to do that. Then we can do uppercase, so everything should be capitalized. So you can see it's all capitalized. Then if we change it to normal, it just shows it how you wrote it in your HTML, exactly how you wrote it. So if I change this to, let's say, capital letter L and save this, then refresh, the capital letter L shows here because that's exactly how I wrote it in the HTML. But it can also take one more value, which is lowercase. So save this, and it makes everything lowercase, right? So that's for text transform. So let me highlight this and this and this. No, sorry. This and this. Okay, so we have full width, transform all blues to be written inside a fixed squares. This one is for languages that uses glyphs most of the time. You won't do this, so I'm just going to skip it. It's not really used. We have text decoration. So it sets the text decoration on fonts. You mainly use this to set the default underline on links when styling them. Available values are none, unsets any text decoration already present. Underline underlines the text. Overline gives the text an overline. Line through puts a strike through over the text. So let's do this. Text decoration. We have underline. So see, underlines the text. Then we have overline. Save this, and it puts a line above the text. Then we have strike through. This strike line through, line through. Yeah, this is puts a line on the text like you are erasing it or something. Then we have none, but you would not really see the importance of none here. Let me do underline. Let's say we have none. We're trying to do none. Let's say we have none. Basically says undo any previous style that has been given, but naturally this len doesn't have any default styling. So the way to know that is to have a link perhaps href, let's just see, hashtag, and then we have link. So if you save this, let me remove this declaration, comment it out. So if I save this now and open it, you would see that we have a link here, but the link is underlined because this is the default way the browser displays a link. It underlines it and it is in this color of blue. So if you want to undo that default behavior, we use the text decoration property and value. So if you save this and refresh, you see it's gone. Okay, so that's the use of text decoration, none, underline, overline, and line through. Right, then we have the font size property. The font size property sets the size of the font. So we are going to use the font size property to increase the font of every text in our document. Remember the units that we talked about previously, font size. I'm going to use pixel and make it 30px, and if I save this, it should become bigger. Great, this is way bigger. So we have len, we have link, and this is clickable. So when you click on it, it turns red, and when it is active, it is purple. Default behavior of links. Okay, so going back, I think that's all. Okay, there's still more text properties. Should we look at all this? I don't think. Okay, let me quickly run through them. I will not be giving examples. So the text properties, we have the color property. The color property specifies the color of text. Use a background color combined with the text color to make the text easy to read. So that's basically saying this is what we did here. Color red, important. Okay, so let's say I want to give it a background color. I can say background color yellow. I'll save this and I do this. It's supposed to be yellow, except okay, I've commented out the H1, so I have to commented out the H1, so it's not showing. Let me just do it here instead. Color go, background color, and which color should I pick? Light coral or something. So yeah, you can see that the color and the background color has changed. Then we have text align properties. Text align property specifies the horizontal alignment of the text, just like in any Word document we have text align. So we do text align left. Let's see if this doesn't show because let me do this. Comment this out. Yeah, so it's on the left now. Let's do text align right, and we have it. See, the text has moved to the right. Then let's do text align center. Then it moves to the center. There's also one value that it takes, but you will not be able to tell the difference except you have a large body of text. This is justify. So yeah, we have vertical align. The vertical align property sets the vertical alignment of the text. So there's also vertical align. Let's say top. Then it takes another value of bottom. Then you can also take center. So just think of it as text align, but instead of for the horizontal position of the text, this one deals with the vertical position of the text. You also rarely use this because you can more accurately do that using your padding and margin. Then we have baseline. We have length, super, sub, top, text, top, middle, bottom. All these are values that the vertical align property can take, right? So I don't know if we should try all of this. Let me see. Vertical align, baseline. So it wouldn't show because we don't have a large text, it's just one word. All of them won't show, but if you have a large body of text, you can just try out all of them. Like I said, you rarely use this, but it's just good to know. Then let's look at text layout. With basic font properties out the way, let's have a look at properties we can use to affect text layout. So we have text align. Text align. The text align property is used to control how text is aligned within its. We've already done this, right? Left, right, center, justify. And then we have line height. Okay, this one we can easily just demonstrate it. We have Yeah, so let me give this line height. Okay, before I do that, if you look at it by default, see how everything is, but if I increase the line height to, let's say, 5 pm, see it's became bigger. Then we can change it to 3 for a more dramatic. Definitely not going to look good. Yes, so this is line height. It just adds space between each line of text. Okay. That's basically all. The line height property sets the height of each line of text. This can take most length and size units, but can also take a unitless value. So you can either use pixels, centimeter, millimeter, inches, em, rem, all of them, but you can also use it without any unit of value, right? And is generally considered the best option, so it's best to use it without a unit, so but can also take a unitless value which acts as a multiplier and is generally considered the best option. So you're basically saying if you're writing it without any unit, so let's say you wrote 1 or 2, just 2 times the current line height, or 3 times the current line height, or 5 times the current line height, or 1.5 times the current line height, right? So it acts as a multiplier. The font size is multiplied to get the line height. So font size is multiplied. Quick demonstration. If do we have a font size? If we wrote font size, if I change this font size to 20, theoretically the line height is supposed to reduce because it acts as C. It reduces. So it acts as a multiplier depending on the font size that you've given it. Body text generally looks nicer and easier to read when the lines are spaced apart. The recommended line height is around 1.5 or 2. So let's change this to 2. So to set our line text to 1.5 line the height of the font, you would use, this is how to do it here, where the line height 2, you can change this to 1.5 if you prefer that. So this is what it will look like for 1.5, and that's basically it, right? So we can end here. In the next lesson, we would look at styling boxes.